Good evening, y'all, and welcome to HRC's Town Hall. I am Nick Harris, proud Vice President of Strategic Outreach at the Human Rights Campaign. You all, thank you so much for joining us as we discuss critical 2024 elections, HRC's historic We Show Up, Get Out the Vote mobilization efforts, and the dangers of Project 2025 to the LGBTQ plus community, and more. Some of you may be admiring and noticing my incredible trucker hat. That's right. I'm rocking my HRC exclusive Harris Walls trucker cap. You all, this thing is flying off the shelves. We don't have many left. This hat is fire. You have to get one. And so we're going to drop in the chat how you can get one from the hrc.org/shop. And so we're going to show you how to get the hat. You can rock this with your Harris Walls camo as well. Goes great together. Get them while we still have a few. You all, we have a full program and lots to share. So I'm going to jump right in. You all, to help kick this off, I have the pleasure of introducing the Human Rights Campaign President, Kelly Robinson, the first Black queer woman to lead the organization. Y'all, Kelly has spent the last 15 years creating and leading winning campaigns and programs. She's been at the forefront in the fight for bodily autonomy and racial and gender equity. Talk about building political power, y'all. Kelly has been traveling all over the country, but she is never too busy to stop by and see us. She's out mobilizing voters and engaging our community. Y'all, did you see her speech? She was on fire at the DNC. Come on, President. Like you, she's doing everything she can. Y'all, give it up and help me welcome to the mic our President, Kelly Robinson.
All right. Well, thank you, Vice President Harris. It feels good to be here with my HRC family tonight. I'm Kelly Robinson. I use she, her pronouns. I'm proud to serve as president of the Human Rights Campaign. Huge thank you to our membership and development team for making sure that we have this time together. Thank you all so much for showing up today, because let me tell you, it's getting real, y'all. There are 28 days left until November 5th. And I don't know about you, but I'm using every single one of them to do everything that I can to make sure that we win, because time isn't going to move any slower. And the stakes for our community are too high to be silent, too high to stay at home. In fact, did you hear the latest? As there are catastrophic hurricanes and storms devastating communities, Donald Trump and his MAGA bullies had the nerve to spread lies about FEMA while we are in crisis. Y'all, I don't know about you, but it pisses me off. It makes me so angry, but it also doesn't surprise me one bit. Donald Trump, JD Vance, these MAGA extremists, they are not just power hungry, they are power mad. They will destroy our democracy. They will dismantle our freedoms. They will demonize our communities. They will do anything and everything to grab more power. These last few years, we've seen them in action. After losing in 2020 big time, Trump and Trumpers have been doing all that they can to claw their way back to the White House. We've seen extremists in state houses introduce hundreds of anti-LGBTQ plus bills, creating a total state of emergency for our community. We've seen extremists in Congress tank bills protecting fundamental rights like access to contraception and IVF. We've seen extremists on the Supreme Court take away affirmative action and student debt relief. And create a right to take away the right for us to make decisions about our own bodies. Y'all, this is not a coincidence. This right here is a conspiracy to divide our nation and destroy our democracy, but we won't let them. Because we know that if they win in November, if these extremists take the House and the Senate, if Donald Trump defames the White House once again, they won't just continue trying to attack us. They will try to erase us. So yes, my friends, the stakes are high. This election will determine our safety and our security, our rights and our freedoms. This election will determine the state of our democracy for generations to come. But here, my friends, is the good news. At HRC, we have the ultimate fighter on our side. And yes, I'm talking about Vice President Kamala Harris. She is a bad, well, let me not use no cuss words to describe our next president, all right? She's been fighting with and for our community for a long time. Y'all got to remember where Kamala Harris grew up, in a little middle-class community in the heart of queer America. We got to remember who ran her first campaign. It was Jim Rivaldo, the political mastermind behind Harvey Milk. And we got to remember that she went all out for our rights when she got into office. She prosecuted hate crimes and officiated same-sex weddings. She supported the Equality Act and helped pass the Respect for Marriage Act. And let's not forget who she picked as her running mate, Governor Tim Walz. who, as a high school teacher in rural America in the late 90s, Coach stepped up to sponsor his school's first gay straight alliance. After serving in the military, Coach Walls went to Congress and helped get Don't Ask, Don't Tell repealed. And as states were passing bills to take away health care from trans folks, Coach Walls went and did the exact opposite. As governor of Minnesota, he signed a law to make his state a safe haven for those seeking transition care. Y'all, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are the champions that we need. They will protect our freedoms. They will strengthen our democracy. They will expand opportunity for every person in this nation. They will lead our nation forward because we are not going back. Go ahead, start chanting at home. We're not going back. Make sure your neighbors hear you too. Listen, while more and more Americans are joining the joy of this campaign, are feeling the hope of this campaign, on calls like this, we also got to keep it real. Donald Trump still has a lot of support. This race is going to be close, but we are here, we are queer, and when we show up, we win. When we vote, we win. Y'all, there are 75 million equality voters in this country who prioritize LGBTQ plus issues at the ballot box. That's more than the number of registered voters in all of the swing states combined. We can quite literally decide the future of our nation. We've just got to show up, because this election is more than about sets of candidates. It's about two different visions for America. It's a decision that will impact what life looks like for generations to come. I mean, look, we can have state houses that demonize trans kids, or we can have schools that welcome and support those kids. Y'all, we can have a Congress that continues to attack pregnant people, or a Congress that codifies Roe v. Wade into law. We can have a 34-time felony convict, wannabe white nationalist dictator, or we can have a White House that looks like America and a president who fights for all of us. We just have to show up right now. So tonight, my friends, you're going to hear a ton of details about how we see the race, about our plan and our path to victory, and what we need to do to get to Election Day and the day after that. I'm honored to be in this fight alongside every single one of you. And I need you to remember two things. That November 5th is the last day of the election, not the first. We got to work as hard as we can every day that we can to win. And I guarantee you, if we do that, on the other side of this, we are going to get to say three powerful words. Congratulations, Madam President. Thanks, y'all, for having me. Have a great night and get fired up, because we got some work to do. Yeah, I can't hear you, Nick. I don't know if it's just me.
Let's see what's
There
happening.
you go. There
There we
you
go.
go.
Y'all, listen, thank you so much, Kelly, for everything you're doing to get us across the finish line. And I did finish that sentence when you said, shut your mouth. We already knew. The chat was on fire with that. Y'all, we can see you already in the chat. President Robinson, thank you so much for everything you're doing. And with that, you all, we're going to keep going on to our next speaker. I am so honored I get to introduce Lynn Bowman, our interim vice president of national campaigns. Lynn joined the staff in 2012. Prior to working with HRC, Lynn held various leadership positions in organizations to advance LGBTQ plus equality on progressive issues. Lynn, I'm turning it over to you.
All right. Well, Nick, you were cutting out for me, but I am assuming that since I'm on the big screen now, it is over to me. So thank you so much. Kelly, you told us about the why. It's my opportunity to tell y'all about the what we're doing and the how you can get engaged. So how are we engaging those 75 million equality voters that Kelly talked about? Well, HRC has had a program on the ground in battleground states since late 2017. We have been in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, Texas. And recently, with the shift in the top of the ticket, we have refocused and added North Carolina. This cycle, we also know that it is critical that we flip the House. So we have congressional districts that we are also prioritizing in California and in New York. That's where we're doing the work. And to do the work, we currently have 54 full-time staff on the ground in those 8 states and 2 congressional state targets. We are partnering incredibly closely with the Harris Walls campaign, and I'll tell you more about that and some opportunities for you to get involved this week in just a moment. Our organizing efforts with those 54 staff across the states started back in May this year with our addition of some of those temporary organizers. In the time that those folks have been on, we have engaged 4,747 to be exact as of Sunday night, volunteers, unique volunteers who are giving their time to HRC to phone bank, to canvas, to help us rally folks at big visibility events, and to come and become members of HRC at some of our membership events. We have also filled 11,865, again, specific as of Sunday evening, shifts, volunteer shifts with the various campaigns that we are supporting. That spans across the Harris Walls campaign and down into congressional districts beyond just the California and New York districts that we are prioritizing. We are working for Julie Johnson in Texas. We are working for Kristen McDonald-Rivet to hold a Democratic seat in Michigan. We are working in state legislatures as well, in state legislative districts as well, with the intent to keep the House in Michigan. The Senate isn't up for election this year. That's why I didn't mention it. To keep the House in Pennsylvania and move closer to flipping the Senate to a pro-equality Senate, and to flip both the House and the Senate in Arizona. Both of those are within 1 vote for becoming pro-equality. And with a pro-equality governor like Katie Hobbs, we know that next legislative session, we would be able to see true movement on our issues. So HRC is working up and down the ticket. We are also involved in a number of ballot issue campaigns, including in Ohio, in Missouri, in Washington, in Arizona, in Nevada, a lot of opportunity in New York. We're working with the ERA campaign there. There's a lot of opportunity for us to truly make a difference in this election. Our folks have made 540,000 calls to people on our list to engage them in our volunteer efforts. So how can you get engaged in those volunteer efforts? Well, this is a big week for us. As you likely know, National Coming Out Day, which started back in 1988. I'll date myself. That was the year I graduated from high school. Our National Coming Out Day is on Friday this week. And on Thursday night, we are launching our National Coming Out Day week of 10 days of action, 10 days of action between the 10th, the evening of the 10th, to the 20th of October, Sunday the 20th. We will be engaging in 164 individual events across those states and congressional districts that I mentioned earlier, those 8 states and the congressional districts in California and New York, over 164 different events. We have a plan to recruit over 1,200 people to engage in those door canvases, in those phone canvases. Y'all, right now, it is all about direct voter contact. Everything that we are doing between now and Election Day for the next 27 days and a wake up is about voter contact, making sure that all the folks, those 75 million equality voters, the people on HRC's member list, people like you, are getting out and voting. So that's what the focus is of those 10 days. We will kick off the event in Philadelphia on Thursday evening with a event with Gwen Walls, who will be joining us. Kelly will be there, and that will launch us into the 10 days. If you are interested in getting involved in any of those events, we have virtual opportunities as well. During that 10-day period, you can go to hrc.im, HRC Mobilize. Long day, y'all. Mobilize.im/HRC. And I think they're putting that in the chat for you. So it's mobilize.im/HRC. And you should be able to find all of the events there that you can engage in. We are focused in our priority candidate districts for those events, as well as the Harris Walls work that we are doing. There is also on Thursday evening, because this entire 10 days of action is co-branded with the Harris Walls campaign, there is a kickoff event as a virtual call after our event in Philly. The Harris Walls team is holding a activation call. It will be at 8 o'clock on Thursday evening, 8 o'clock Eastern time. You are encouraged to join. We will be joined not just by Kelly Robinson, but also by Vice Presidential candidate Tim Walz. We'll hear about the opportunities to engage directly with the Harris Walls team and HRC over not just the coming days of that 10 days of action, but between Thursday and Election Day. As Kelly said, Election Day is not the last day to vote, or sorry, not the first day to vote. It is the last day to vote. We have a lot of work to do in the upcoming 27 days and a wake up. I hope you will join us in that work. We need every single person who can give even just a little bit of your time to help us talk to voters. There's 75 million of them out there, y'all, and we need to reach every single one. With that, I am going to turn it back over to you, Nick.
Thank you so much, Lynn. I have to say this, y'all. This chat is on fire. And I want to say, as a fellow Floridian, I see my Floridians in the chat. Y'all keep it going. So with that, thank you, Lynn. This is probably the most consequential election of our lifetime yet again. And so many of us are worried about the outcomes. It's great to get a sense of depth and breadth of HRC's electoral work. You all, next, you're going to hear from Luis Vasquez, HRC Senior Legislative Counsel. Luis has focused on robust legal career on advancing LGBTQ plus rights and has been with HRC since 2022. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Nick. And thank you all again so much for showing up today. My name is Luis Vasquez. I use he, him pronouns. And it's my pleasure to be here with you because I know that all of us are brought in by the same thing. We know equality is on the ballot. And to me, nothing makes that issue quite as clear or even feel quite as pressing as the knowledge that we are facing Project 2025. Now, some of you in this chat have actually already brought up Project 2025. But there might be plenty of you that don't know too much about it, or you don't know how to talk about it as you're trying to work with folks to help them see that the Harris Walls campaign really is here to fight for all of us. And so I'd love to dive a little bit more into what these plans are. Now, Project 2025 is a radical guidebook that looks to outline how do you remake the government and really how do you remake the country to reverse all of our gains in equality over the last few decades, if not centuries, and how do you hand complete power over the executive branch over to Donald Trump. Now, Project 2025 is so radical that now that it's gone public, now that people are talking about it, Donald Trump himself has even tried to distance himself from it. But all of us here know that Donald Trump has a pattern and a practice of lying about anything he can. And the greatest cure to that is to look at the facts, is to really understand what's going on. And when we do that, we know that there is no way he doesn't know anything about Project 2025. After all, this is something that was written by people that he appointed to be leaders in his previous administration, including some of his secretaries. This is something that has been written by people and organizations that he's continued to work and consult with, not only during his last presidency, but now over his last two presidential campaigns. And these are organizations that continue to vocally support him and fight for him to be elected. But at the end of the day, even when you pare all of those connections back, we can see that Project 2025 is an agenda that aligns perfectly with everything Donald Trump did the last time he was in office and all of the rhetoric and the threats that he's been making on the campaign trail ever since. And so let's dive a little bit into what some of those ideas are. What is on Donald Trump's wish list and agenda for our country? Now, first and foremost is remaking the executive branch, making it so that it's going to follow his whims, follow his agenda, and always do exactly what he needs it to do. And in fact, he started that work before he last left office, when he tried to remove protections for career employees so that he could replace the federal government staff with his people. Instead of having experts working on these issues, he wanted hand-selected political appointees to keep working, and Project 2025 encourages that as a pillar of its agenda. It also continues on, singling out other agencies that Donald Trump has had in his crosshairs, such as the Department of Justice, and making sure that they have less power to enforce the law. It's going after agencies like the Department of Education and even pushing to eliminate them completely. But the work, of course, doesn't stop there. When you dig through Project 2025, it's clear that they want to enact some of the most vindictive parts of Donald Trump's agenda, and that includes reversing gains in lived equality for everybody, but especially for LGBTQ plus people and particularly transgender people, who he will not stop talking about on the campaign trail, as we know. Project 2025 and Donald Trump are about division, and their ideas are only going to continue dividing us. One of those is to eliminate all of the work that's been done over the last few years to ensure that LGBTQ plus people are being protected from discrimination. They want to eliminate rules, guidance, and so many efforts by agencies to recognize that we are protected under the law, to make it so that if you're going to the hospital, if you're a child in school, even if you're the employee of a federal contractor, that you wouldn't have any recourse if you're discriminated against. Now, of course, we fought long and hard alongside our movement partners to make sure that we have many win gains for equality, including a 2020 Supreme Court decision about employment discrimination. But Project 2025 wants those wins to be limited, and it would even call on Donald Trump's government to go in and implement those decisions in the most narrow way that they can, to lead to a logical outcomes, like the fact that, okay, fine, we can't fire you or deny you hiring because you're gay or trans, but we can harass you at work, we can demote you, and we can ultimately push you out of a job, and there's nothing you can do about that. They want to change the way that agencies are prioritizing what they're investigating, what they're researching, to make sure that we are placed back in the shadows. And of course, it explicitly calls back to bring back some of the most unpopular parts of Donald Trump's first term, like his transgender military ban and ending support for LGBTQ plus rights abroad. But unfortunately, it doesn't stop there. Project 2025 also calls to keep moving on anti-equality propositions using the rhetoric that Donald Trump has been using on the campaign trail. And so, of course, as he fights against the rights of trans kids to access best practice medical care, Project 2025 echoes that with plans to ban gender-affirming care for all youth across the country, and to even make sure that he's equipped to use levers at his disposal, like Medicaid, to deny that access to care for adults as well. It even seeks to create a license to discriminate, so that whether you're a low-income student looking to obtain free lunch at school, or you're a family trying to adopt or foster children, that the government would be giving the go-ahead for people to discriminate against you just because of who you are and what your family looks like. They will create a license to discriminate based on religious exercise to ensure that these licenses can be used to violate civil rights laws, and again, making it so that our wins at the courthouses don't even matter under their regime. But then the last thing I'd like to underscore is the fact that the attacks don't stop there. They even plan on doing things like using laws that are over 100 years old to start blocking the shipment of medication and instruments that are used for abortion-related care. So that even though Donald Trump bragged that this was now put on the states, he also has clearly been upset that many states are not pushing towards his anti-abortion agenda. And so now he would have the federal government step into those states to make sure that people don't have access to care, and even finding ways to use those laws to go after care for transgender people as well. And so, unfortunately, we need to understand at this pivotal moment that Project 2025 is here. It is real, it's incredibly detailed, and it gives Donald Trump a roadmap to make good on his threats against our community. He is ready to rush in and to perfect the work that he started during his first run and to make things even worse for us across the board. And that's why we need to keep showing up to make sure that he isn't going to be given that chance now or ever again. And with that, I will turn it back over to Nick. Thank you so much again for coming tonight.
Thank you so much, Luis. I have to say, you all, I see you in the chat sharing that you have already, some of you have mailed back your ballots. The key now is to make sure you take some equality voters with you to the polls. You all, we want to bring back all of our speakers and ask some questions that came from people like you across the country. Our members, if you haven't already joined us, please remember that for a gift as small as $5, you can receive a one-year membership that allows you to send you political communications. All you need to do is visit hrc.org/donate. You all, again, that's hrc.org/donate. And so, like I said, we have some town hall questions that came from you all across the country. And as we're grappling with what could potentially threaten our rights and protections, there is absolutely a strong desire for action, inclusivity, and transparent communications from organizations like the Human Rights Campaign. For us to do that, we need you to join us. So you all, please do that now. And we have some question and answer time. And so our first question comes from Georgia, where I happen to be sitting right now. And it's from Chris, and it goes to Lynn. The question is, does HRC anticipate that next year will be a challenging year for LGBTQ plus rights at the state level, even if President Harris wins? I'm not going to say even if. When she wins, what's still the challenge?
Great. Well, thanks for that question, Chris. And I just want to start by saying I hope that wherever you are in Georgia, that you are safe and doing well with recovery from Hurricane Helene. And to anybody else who is on the call this evening, who experienced some of that devastation or is dealing with Milton coming in Florida, our thoughts go out to you. So, you know, if President Harris wins, I'm trying to practice saying President Harris, we are going to use that momentum to make sure that we are continuing to fight the legislation that gets introduced that is trying to take away our rights in the states. You know, we have been present for years in state legislatures, working with our partners, state LGBTQ plus organizations, local organizations, working to beat back these bills, just like we did, Chris, as you likely know, in Georgia this last year. We beat back all of them. And if and when President Harris becomes a reality, we are going to grab that momentum with our members, folks like you, and make sure that we continue to fight back against those bills and succeed, that we will make sure that our equality is protected in the states.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I put out the words to claim what I want, and I'm doing everything I can to make sure we bring it about. And that's what everyone listening to us has to do. My second question is for you, Luis, from Emma in New York. Are we seeing efforts like Project 2025 in the states, plans to remake state bureaucracies to be as conservative, reactionary, and anti-equality as possible?
No, thank you so much for that question, Emma, right? Because when I was talking about Project 2025 before, the importance of tying it to what the Trump administration already did before, we also have to tie it into what's been happening around the states now, right? The same groups that wrote Project 2025 have been out in the states for years, pushing bills that carry that same agenda, trying to enact this anywhere that they can. And so absolutely, core parts of Project 2025 are anti-equality, right? And they include things that we've already seen in the States, like book bans, like adopting a don't say trans law and penalizing schools that try to affirm transgender students, by forcing teachers to dead name their students and use the pronouns that were reflected off their birth certificates and not how they identify. but of course also with anti-democracy, with the consolidation of power. This is something we're already seeing. And again, it's the same actors that go after our gains for equality. So we see people like Ryan Walters out of Oklahoma, right? One of his latest stunts has been to try to push to buy Bibles to put in every school, even though the state legislature didn't set aside money to do that. We have agencies in states like Texas and Florida that are being weaponized to go after trans people and people that their governors disagree with, even when that isn't what the legislature authorized them to do. And so absolutely, we are seeing this reflected everywhere we can, which is what makes it so important for us to continue to show up down ballot, because they will look for any opening they can to enact this agenda because they know it is so radical and unwanted by so many of us.
Thank you for that, Louisa. I'm going to say this, Louisa and Lynn, this is a question for both of you if you want to jump in. How will Project 2025 dismantle hard-won rights for our community, specifically as people are concerned about same-sex marriage and parental rights?
I'm happy to jump into that a little bit first, Lynn. So I do want to make one thing clear, right? As I mentioned earlier, we fight their hatred, their division with facts. Project 2025 doesn't call to explicitly ban same-sex marriages, but we should focus on what it does do, which is that it would relegate those to a second-class status. Project 2025 is filled with plans to take away rights from same-sex couples, to have the government go out of its way to elevate opposite-sex marriages, to go out of its way to give rights to those families, to cut off things like foster care and adoption for same-sex couples. And so they're effectively trying to do that without saying that they are, because again, they know that these policies are so popular that they need to chip away how they can while trying to hide what they're actually doing against us.
Lynn, to follow up on that, I'm curious, what would you say to our members listening right now? What is it that they can do or should be doing?
Well, that we've got to get Vice President Harris and Governor Walz into office and make sure we do everything we can to keep Trump out of there. So I'll reiterate the links that I believe they're able to put in the chat. If you want to get involved, you can go to mobilize.im/HRC or mobilize.im/volunteer. Either one of those will get you to all of our events across the country where you can give your time to make sure that we keep Trump out of office and elect the most pro-equality administration that we know we will ever have, or at least that we've ever had to date, in Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, like Nick's hat that everybody wants to have.
It's the best trucker hat ever. So you all, this brings us to the end of our program, but you all just heard what you can do, and we're going to give you an opportunity to do something right now. First of all, I want to thank our amazing speakers for joining us today. I want to thank you for showing up with us, for supporting us and pro-equality candidates across the country and fighting for our rights. Y'all are what make our work happen, okay? So here is what you can do right now that you just heard Lynn talking about, Louise talking about. You can join us phone banking. I don't mean later, you all jump right to phone banking right now. We're going to give you the links. We're going to phone bank now to help make sure we get a Harris-Walz administration. We need all hands on deck, and we've got to turn out pro-equality voters across the country. We're not leaving anything on the field, you all. We are dropping the links in the chat right now so you know how to join us. You all, thank you for all you continue to do to advance equality. Y'all, don't forget to get your trucker hat. Go to our HRC shop and get your hat, because I'm about to buy a couple more. They are leaving fast. Donate and become a member. Join us phone banking. And with that, you all have an amazing night.